On the other hand, that night, Dee realized that ever since he confessed his feelings to Jian, he had become more distant and uncomfortable. Dee would talk to him, but in reality she didn't expect a response. She felt embarrassed for making him feel that way. Jian, in a rude manner, didn't understand why she wanted to make him uncomfortable. He had decided to tell her, but recommended that it would be better for her to find another man, because he wasn't looking for a partner, and so he left her. The next day, Kivx was enjoying the watch his boss had given him, but suddenly it was taken from him. Nothing that his boss had given him was of use. If he wanted it back, he had to give something good in return. That's when Kiv realized his boss was planning to propose to Jian and was looking for the perfect proposal idea for her. The first plan was to take her to such an expensive restaurant that it seemed his boss would go broke. At the moment, the boss went off to prepare everything, but just as he left, a couple got engaged, apparently with the ring hidden in a cake. Jian arrived and asked what had happened. Jian told him what occurred, disapprovingly, feeling it was such an obvious, childish and insignificant proposal. Hearing this, Jian felt crushed, so he left again and cancelled the proposal just in time. In his next attempt, Jian took Jian to a basketball game, something neither of them liked. They were sitting there, freezing, when out of nowhere a couple got engaged. Just by seeing Jia's disgusted face, Jian understood she didn't like it either. Jian thought it was horrible to be so showy. Once again, Jian rushed to cancel everything, just in time because Jian almost caught on. Then came the third attempt. This time, he took Jian to a beautiful yacht. He was sure this time it would work. Everything was prepared, but Jian was freezing, and Jian couldn't give her his coat because the engagement ring was already there. Jian got upset because if he wasn't cold, why couldn't he give her his coat? And since he wouldn't, Jian wanted to leave the yacht immediately. Days went by, and Jian, meeting with his brothers, overheard Jaebon mocking Jian for not knowing his girlfriend's preferences. In the middle of it all, an elderly woman interrupted them. She gave Jian a smack, and seeing the others mocking, she scolded them too. But then she wanted to tell them something. Overcomplicating things is foolish. They simply needed to be themselves, not letting others influence them with their words. They just had to do what their hearts told them. For Jian, this was eye-opening. Without wasting another moment, he ran out of there, realizing what the kind old lady had been talking about. That same evening, Jawa was at a family dinner with her uncles, her brother, and her mum. Everyone was already convinced about Jian, especially her brother, who spoke highly of him. Her aunt found it strange that Jo's mum had accepted him. She thought she would have looked for a doctor or something like that. Just then, Jian arrived, and Jao's mum told her that of course he could have studied that. But he's good at what he does. No one understood what he was doing there, but after quickly apologizing, he approached Jia. Although he didn't know how to start or express all the feelings he had for her, he began by telling her that he simply hadn't managed to come up with a beautiful proposal for her, but that he loved her with all his heart. He asked her to marry him, and everyone agreed. Jia, without thinking twice, threw herself into his arms, so happy to be in his life. She asked him to repeat what he had said, but in French. After that, Jia responded with, "I do." In the end, the beautiful Jian won over his mother-in-law, and she was thrilled. The next day, everyone in the office found out that Jia and the boss were getting married, and, of course, Kivx needed his payment, his watch. But there was no way he was giving it up. Even though Kiev never gave up, he eventually convinced him. On the other hand, Editor Choi was happy for Jia and just asked her to be very happy. But in the distance, amidst all this happiness, Jian was consumed by her desire to make that man miserable. In the coming days, Jian arrived at the office and was surprised to find that Jian was now going to be in charge of the runway. As she had warned before, she called the boss and put him on speakerphone during a meeting, asking what was going on. Haijun explained that her daughter would now handle everything, but Jio-min told her that in that case he would have to leave because he didn't plan to work for a thief. Haijun was humiliated, especially when her mother told her to leave because she still couldn't do without the services of the chief editor. This was clear for Haijun. This man who seemed kind, even suffering, was nothing more than a fool who looked down on her as much as, if not more than, her own mother. She was filled with hatred, so much so that she wanted to kill him. From that day on, Haijun lived in hell. She ate excessively and became more violent. Meanwhile, the beautiful couple, Jio-min and Jia, enjoyed their time together, even taking care of Sol. For Jio-min, it was now time for them to go together to search for and design her wedding dress. The next night, Haijun was lost in alcohol. She had hired someone to kill Jio-min, and it seemed the job would be easy. They had him in sight, and as long as she deposited the full amount, they would do the job. And, of course, she did. A truck was following Jio-min, who was driving and talking to Jia. They had agreed that he would pick her up from work, and he was only about 5 minutes away when he noticed it started snowing, and it was beautiful. Since it was Friday, they wanted to go for a walk, and everything seemed perfect, until the truck accelerated, and Haijun ordered them to hit him and finish him off. The truck did just that. Jio-min suffered a huge blow, and it made him fall off the bridge. Meanwhile, Jia was happy, but she felt like she had been waiting too long. The time passed and Jio-min was fighting for his life. He was in surgery, and for Jio-min it felt like a game. He had wished so many times to die and be with his parents, but now that he wanted to live and spend happy times with Jia, it seemed like he wouldn't achieve it. It appeared that being happy wasn't his destiny. Jia arrived just after hearing the news and couldn't even comprehend what had happened. Haijun quickly explained to her that Jio-min had been in a traffic accident, but Jia was still unsettled. Jae-ban was at the police station investigating, but Jia couldn't stay calm. She couldn't even say this was real. After the surgery, Jio-min was left in a coma, and Jia, along with Sol, stayed by his side. Meanwhile, Jia was talking to Jae-ban. Apparently this had been planned. The truck didn't have a license plate, and then it fled. They decided not to tell Jia's mother because she was already suffering so much from her illness, and it seemed like the best option. Jia was lost. She didn't know what to do or how to help him. Sol was scared, seeing her dad not wake up, and Jia told her that he was probably dreaming of his parents to tell them he was going to get married. But thinking about the possibility that he might never wake up broke her heart, and she couldn't stop crying. Meanwhile, Jio-min was still between life and death, and Jae, who had just arrived to see him, asked about his family, his little Sol, and everyone was fine. But when he asked about his mother, Jio-min asked him to help her, as she was very sick and everyone needed her. Then, Jia asked about Jia and how they were. As he heard the words from Jia and her family telling him to wake up, Jia held him and told him he shouldn't stay there, he had to go back, and with that, Jio-min disappeared. The next moment he found himself in Paris, a time when he had to do thousands of jobs just to survive. He always told his mum he was fine, that he didn't need anything. But deep down, there was a lot he didn't have. He would tell himself, just hang in there because one day you will be happy. On the other hand, Jia's mother arrived and found her daughter asleep. She took the opportunity to tell Jio-min to stop causing problems and wake up, because everything would get better if he returned. She just asked him to come back, and so Jio-min found himself in that same place, in his dream. He didn't understand what was happening, but at that moment his parents finally arrived to see him. They knew he had faced many problems after they left him, but now they could finally be together. Jio-min felt like a child again. He remembered his parents, and for the first time in many years, he saw their faces again. Meanwhile, Elle arrived to see her daughter. Haijun told her that the editor, Yu Ming, had suffered an accident caused by a truck without a license plate. She wanted to know if her daughter was involved. Jun asked, "Did he die?" Haijun replied, "I was scammed. They told me he would die if I paid them 100%. After hearing this, Kelly fainted. She couldn't believe what her daughter had done. The days passed, and Haijun's mother and Jajun arrived at the hospital. They were informed about the results of the tests, and as the doctor had always said, trust in miracles. The medication was finally showing results. It could be the medication or a miracle, but everything would be fine. They gave them hope, though she would have to continue with chemotherapy. For all of them, hearing this was a great relief. While all this was happening, Jian was living in a dream, enjoying being with his parents, remembering his family, and even experiencing things he never had the chance to do with them when they were alive. But while he lived this way, Jia suffered. She barely ate and had no energy for anything. She just wanted to be with him, waiting for him to wake up. 10 days had passed and he still hadn't woken up. The wait seemed endless. But today, Kiv Vex had returned his watch. He felt guilty and thought, this watch is lucky. Maybe if I return it, he will wake up. Jae begged Jian one last time to wake up so they could be happy together. Meanwhile, in his dream, Jian looked at the stars with his parents. But when Jia placed the watch on his wrist, it appeared in his dream and he remembered everything. His parents started telling him it was time to leave, but they wanted him to know that he had never been alone. They asked him to close his eyes and then open them, and he saw his past, how his 2 crazy siblings, Jaebon and Haijun, took care of him during his illness, maybe not to cure him, but they tried not to let him die. They were always there for him. He had never lacked a mother's love. He had to remember that his mother had chosen him as her favorite child among her 3 children. That's why his parents wanted him to understand that he was always surrounded by beautiful people. He was never alone. And now he could see how many people loved him and how many wanted him to return. Jian saw Jia so thin, and he became worried. But his parents told him that his place was not with them, that he still had so much to live. He had to go. But they asked him never to forget that he was never alone and that he never had a sad life. They hoped that one day, in the distant future, they would meet again. With that, Jian left, not before telling them that he was going to get married and there would always be a place waiting for them. Shortly after, Jian moved his hand. Jajun saw him and notified everyone. It seemed unreal, but Jian finally woke up. He saw them all, and everyone was so happy, especially Jia, as the love of her life had finally woken up. On the other hand, Haijun's mother was resting, but in the middle of her sleep, Jian visited her. He approached her and asked her to stay healthy for a long time and that he loved her. She woke up crying, but she would fulfill it. Then, her precious son, Jian, arrived to see her and told her that he had finally returned home. Later, Jian spent time with Jia. Finally, the worst had passed, and there was nothing in this world that could separate them. Now they would always be together. They fell asleep together, but in the middle of the night, Jian woke up, left Jia sleeping, and went to see Jaebon, who was, as usual, fighting with Seoul. But there, Jian wanted to bring his family back together, and he wanted a drink. Obviously, everyone refused. But why not a glass of juice? He wanted to tell them he had had a very long dream. He couldn't remember exactly what had happened, but when he woke up, he felt that something had been released within him. He confessed that he had always been so envious of Haijun. He had always achieved great things, and Jian would think about what he had done wrong to be born the way he was. He thought no one was by his side, and that's why he was alone. However, his family had always been right in front of his eyes. They had always been there for him. Hearing this, Jia felt happy. Finally, Jian understood. Days passed, and at Seo's house, a maid rushed into Miss Haijun's room to inform her that her mother wasn't opening her eyes. Haijun panicked and quickly ran to check on her mother. She found her lying on the floor with a bottle of liquor. She asked them to call an ambulance. A few hours later, Jian found out what had happened. Seo was in the hospital due to a pill overdose, and at least he was able to visit her. He asked her to wait for him, and he entered. Jomin talked to Haijun as if nothing had happened. He told her about his accident and how the runway seemed to have some sort of curse, but he told Haijun to be patient. Her mother would get better soon. He was about to leave when Haijun said, What happened wasn't an accident. I did it. Jian lost his mind when he heard this. She even told him that money could also be used to kill people. She confessed that her mother had found out what she had done, and that was why she was like this. She said that her existence was the curse for everyone. He threw the basket of fruit he had brought, but he wanted to know why she had done this to him. She didn't think to apologize. To her, he was just trash that needed to be discarded forever. He couldn't understand what harm he had caused, and it was all because he hadn't let her die. At that moment, Jia, who had overheard everything, entered, grabbed Haijin and slapped her hard. Haijin threatened to fire her, but Jia didn't care. It still wasn't enough, and she slapped her again and again. She made it clear. That day, you didn't just try to kill a man. You tried to take away a precious son from a mother fighting cancer. You tried to take away a father from a little girl. You almost caused a great guilt in her older brother. You tried to take away someone's most precious friend. And that day, you were going to take away the person with whom you promised to be together forever. And still, you feel no guilt. After that, Jia warned her, "You will never be at peace. I hope you turn yourself in for what you've done." From that day on, they left the runway behind. But one day, Jiamon received a call from Bogs Paris to work there. 6 months passed, and it seemed Haijin had turned herself in. However, with the lawyers and money they had, she would only serve 6 years in prison, with the possibility of early release for good behavior. On the other hand, Jiamin told Jaebon that he had decided to go to Paris with Jia after their wedding. They would still visit often. Meanwhile, Jia Jun had learned that being rejected hurt more than rejecting, because when he carefully observed Miss Mon, he realized he was interested in her. So that day while they were drinking, and especially when they were alone, John acted gallantly toward her. Seeing this, Domi wasted no time and quickly asked him if he was interested in going to the cinema with her that Saturday. Jia Jun clarified that he was a father, and she knew that his priority would always be his daughter, which was logical to her. Jia Jun even told her that he had once left someone he loved deeply because his parents didn't accept the idea of him already having a daughter, but Domi didn't mind. Yajin made excuse after excuse until Domi confronted him, handing him a necklace that was a key. She gave it to him as a promise. If obstacles arose in the future, they would face them together. After that, there were no doubts. She was the one. Haijin then invited her to the cinema. Weeks passed, and finally, the wedding of Jia and Jiamin arrived. The mother of the 3 musketeers was healthier and in better condition. On the other hand, the divorced exes were still fighting, but now because Jion had become overly protective. Meanwhile, Domi was happier than ever with Jion. Now their relationship was real. But finally, the long-awaited entrance of the newlyweds, Jiamin and Jia, arrived. They entered as elegant and dazzling as usual. They bowed in front of their parents, and Jia's mother was more than happy with the lovely and extravagant son-in-law her daughter had chosen. On the other hand, they also thanked Jiamin's parents for raising him, and there, at last, were the seats for Jiamin's parents. Although they were not present in body, they were there in spirit. There was nothing left to do. The wedding was breathtaking. Even the sun treated them to a beautiful song. And so, the photo session began. Photos of all of them looking more than happy. Photos that showed that behind every situation, there is a solution. But most of all, they demonstrated that bond that only a true family can have. As the days passed, the newlyweds travelled to Paris. Jia started studying French. It was difficult for her, but living in such a magical place was perfect, especially with the man she loved by her side. Her next goal was to find a job. Meanwhile, Jiamin, her hero, rescued her from pickpockets, as always. And since he had just helped her, how about Jia paying him back with a drink? Thank you for listening to the story. If you enjoyed, please give it a like, and subscribe if you want to see more manhwa recaps. Let me know what stories you'd like to see next. And one last big thank you to everyone that left some really nice words of encouragement and really kept me motivated to keep posting these stories for everyone to enjoy. Until next time, bye-bye.